I lean my head against the window and watch the skyscrapers transform into greenery while I sway to the beat of the train. Today is my first day of living in a new rural town. I work as an office worker in research, and I am 35 years old. I work in the development research division of a pharmaceutical corporation. We are all being transferred because our department is transferring to a branch in the country. I'm relocating to the country for that reason. This is my first time living in the country. I was born and raised in the city. Because I'm so accustomed to the comforts of city life, I'm not thrilled at all, but rather depressed by the prospect of the annoyances that lie ahead. I came to this town with these emotions. After a few months, I'm finally adjusting to the commute to the new lab. This is a remote village, as one might assume, with just a massive facility nearby. Compared to the tiny one in our city headquarters, this one is more convenient. It's still inconvenient to live here. There isn't a convenience store close by for a quick snack, and the closest supermarket is 30 minutes away if I run out of household supplies. I must admit that I'm getting a little tired of this way of life. This weariness has been both physical and mental lately. The recent departure of our department head is the cause, not simply this small town. Hey Tyson, you're staying late today again, John. Today is unavoidable. I'm busy entertaining customers. I have to turn in a report to headquarters by tomorrow. You understand. However, you must review that report before sending it. Leave it alone. Keeping customers entertained is extremely crucial. Interesting. Recently, you've been going out to bars with locals. Have you said anything? What? Are you unaware of the consequences of disobeying me in this town? Yes, Tyson has become very authoritarian since the boss's supervision has decreased. He was amazingly calm since coming here. Back at headquarters, he wasn't very good, but he wasn't dangerous. Does a person's actual nature emerge as their surroundings change? Nonsensical directives and unreasonable reprimands. All of us, even my seniors, juniors, and coworkers, were forced to comply in silence. I sigh. I'm exhausted today as well. I visited a small, privately owned business before making my way home after walking down a long, lonely road. Fields line both sides, and every wind carries the scent of the land. Since there isn't a convenience store close by for a late-night snack, I now make it a point to stop by the store every day after work. All luck. Hi. A woman who is a little older smiles and says, "Welcome, John. Working hard today again?" She tosses me a bag and asks, "You really worked hard, don't you?" Before I take it, I always make sure to thank her. Thank you. Come again soon. The cicadas buzzed, and a breeze rustled through. The sun had tilted further since early beer, beginning to darken the sky. It's a good 30-minute walk home, so I opened one of the beers I just bought. When opening the can, it made a satisfying sound. Then I sighed and took a gulp. Ah, that's good. Lately, I've been thinking a lot. I enjoy my daily research, but I wonder if it's worth coming to such a remote rural area for it. Tyson spends his days bar hopping with locals and often comes in hungover, useless at work. While covering for Tyson and enduring his unreasonable anger, I spend my days solely focused on research. On my days off, I just lie around fiddling with my phone, not going anywhere in this lonely rural town. Without a girlfriend or friends, there's too little to do alone. Is this really how my life should be at 35? Such concerns have risen. The next day, feeling well rested for the first time in a while, I woke up refreshed and grabbed my phone. At that moment, I froze. It was already 10:00 a.m. Oh no, I overslept. Panic set in, and I quickly called the lab where my colleague Richard answered. "Hello, it's John. Sorry I overslept. Is Tyson there?" "Hey, good morning." "No, Tyson's not coming today. Sounds like he's hungover." "Got it. Sorry, I'm on my way now. Just leave it. It's cool. Why don't you take the day off? You've been looking down lately. Probably tired. Take a break today. I've got your work covered. Taking my colleague's advice, I decided to skip work for the day. When was the last time I skipped work? But what to do now? I wasn't even sleepy anymore. As I opened the curtains, thinking this through, the sunlit mountains came into view. Huh. The mountains suddenly inspired me. I quickly packed a towel and water in my backpack and set out for a hike. This is the first time I'm doing something like this since I came here. The air tastes good. Breathing deeply in, the greenery feels incredibly refreshing. I felt as if my constant complaints and gloominess were being replaced by the clean air. With a youthful spirit, I continued walking, aiming to go as far as I could. Rustling grass, crunching soil. Amid these sounds, I heard something like a fall. What was that? Rushing toward the sound, I found a woman in a tattered state, huddled on the ground. My shout echoed in response to the scene. Are you okay? Are you alive? Can you get up? I kept calling out desperately. Responding to my voice, the woman slowly opened her eyes. Oh, you're awake. When the woman noticed me, she seemed flustered and whispered in a weak voice, I'm okay. The woman forcefully sat up, said ah in a soft voice, and held her ankle with her hand. Does your ankle hurt? Just a moment, please. I took out a first aid kit from my backpack, got out some ointment and bandages. I'll do some first aid. I applied the ointment to her ankle, used a nearby twig as a splint, and wrapped it with a bandage. There, that should do for now. Thank you so much. I was surprised when I heard a noise, and then saw you sliding down from above and curling up here. I slipped on the path up there, and before I knew it, I had slid down here. That was close. She kept thanking me over and over, grateful that I happened to pass by. Thank you so much. My name is Maria. I'm John. If you don't mind, I can take you to the hospital. I could possibly ask you to do that. I can walk by myself. Ouch. See, you're still in pain. You can't walk like that. Don't force yourself, and don't mind if I smell a bit sweaty. As I said this, I squatted down to let her climb on my back. Maria hesitantly got on. I can't believe you're doing all this for me. I'm so sorry. No worries. Carrying her on my back, supporting the backpack with my stomach, we slowly descended the mountain, chatting about various things. Maria had also moved from the city, and today she had taken a day off before starting a new job to visit this mountain. We especially hit it off, talking about the differences between city and rural life. Eventually, our conversation shifted to more personal topics. Do you work at that big research lab? Yes, I do. She looked surprised. I moved here after our department transferred from the headquarters. Is that so? After thinking for a bit, she asked me another question. How was your job? Well, I've gotten used to the new workplace, but actually, my boss, his personality has changed lately, and it's been tough. Haha. I ended up telling Maria about how my boss had changed since moving here, how he started acting superior, as if he were the top dog, looking down on his subordinates, not doing any work, and using company money to go bar hopping with locals under the guise of business entertainment. It had been a while since I talked to someone outside of work, so I accidentally shared more than I intended. Maria listened quietly and said, That sounds tough. I've been feeling down lately, but coming to the mountain today made me feel refreshed. It's like I can now focus on working together with everyone. Thank you for listening. After our talk, I carried her down the mountain in silence and took her to a small hospital at the foot of the mountain. She assured me she could take a taxi home, so I left. I thought waiting might take care of her, but by the time I realized it, it was already evening. It had been a while since I felt this uplifted in the evening. Thinking of Maria's smile made me feel refreshed on my way home. In the following weeks, life continued as usual, with my work, looking after my juniors, and covering for Tyson. I was getting used to life here, and the warmth of the small rural community grew on me. The kindness in a rural town is something you don't often find in the city. Then, one day, I got a sudden call from headquarters. Had they found out I skipped work to go hiking? Feeling anxious about possibly being fired, I headed to the city. Seeing the towering skyscrapers after a long time made my heart flutter. When I lived there, I never noticed, but the air felt like it was mixed with various things, making my nose feel stuck. With my heartbeat racing in fear, I calmed myself as I visited the CEO's office at the headquarters. "Excuse me," as I entered, the CEO greeted me with a smile. "Hey, long time no see, John. Have you lost some weight?" Seeing the CEO as usual confused me. I had been expecting to be fired, so it felt unexpected. The CEO engaged in some small talk for a while, and I went along with it. The main topic didn't seem to come up. What was this meeting about after all? Just as I was wondering, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," the CEO responded, and the door swung open energetically. To my surprise, the woman who entered was Maria, the one who had injured her foot on the mountain. "Wait, aren't you the person from that time? Why are you here?" Surprised, I stared at her as she blushed and shyly said, "I'm sorry about the other day." The CEO, addressing Maria, urged her, "Come here," while I stood there with a puzzled look. Maria cleared her throat, just like the CEO, and began to speak. "Thank you for helping me that day. My injury has completely healed, thanks to you. I apologize for the late introduction, but I'm Maria, the CEO's daughter." "CEO's daughter? Why were you in that town?" "So, you hadn't heard that confirms what I said was true." "That's right." Lost in their conversation, I struggled to follow. "Tyson is no good anymore. There's no information sharing at all." "Indeed," she added. Excuse me." Unable to hold back, I interrupted. Maria smiled at me. "Actually, I was supposed to join the development research department in that town, but I injured my foot and had to return home for recovery. I had told Tyson to convey this to everyone, including you, but it seems no one was informed." "Guess I heard nothing about it," I said. "I brought up the need for reform to the CEO right after hearing a department situation from you. That's what I wanted to hear from you." The CEO added, "Is that so? But why me?" "Because your attitude towards work is admirable. Really, what you shared while carrying me mirrored what my mother used to say." The CEO nodded at me. Maria's words, "cherish unity," as she said, are similar to my late wife's philosophy. She passed away 25 years ago from an illness. It was the first time I felt like my heart was torn out. Since then, I've immersed myself in work, maybe to recover. I've been working to reduce the number of families experiencing what my daughter and I went through, helping increase lives saved by medicine. So, our company's foundation is built on my wife's words. Cherish unity. The people waiting for our medicine are not strangers. They share our fate. I see. Which brings me to this. I want you to take over as head of the development research department. Hearing this, I felt a shock as if struck by lightning. Me? I'm honored. But why? I was so flustered that I repeated the same question and then, embarrassedly, shut my mouth. The development research department is the heart of our company. I want someone who sees helping people as natural and shares my vision to lead it. The CEO smiled warmly, a soft expression I felt I was seeing for the first time. I felt a surge of energy welling up inside me and simply bowed my head. "I'll help too. Let's work together. See you later. Then, we'll take care of the formal procedures another day." As I was about to leave the room, saying thank you in response to the CEO's words, I heard a clearing of the throat. The CEO, as a father, said, "Thank you for helping my daughter. I'm truly grateful. Things will get busy, but when you have time, I'd like to properly thank you." The CEO bowed slowly. "Don't do that. Please raise your head." I only did what anyone would do as a person. Upon hearing my words, the CEO slowly raised his head, looked into my eyes, and said, "Thank you again." I bowed to the CEO and left his office with Maria. Well, I never imagined it would turn out like this. I just gazed out at the view of the buildings turning into greenery. I was reminded of the day I moved, but unlike that day, Maria was now beside me, and I had an important mission of reform ahead. It's going to be busy, but at least it's goodbye to those days of aimlessly following a superior. I felt a passion surging inside me, warming me up. It's been a while since I've felt this way, perhaps since I was a new employee. I want to help people. That's why I chose this job and this company, drawn by the CEO's character. I had always wondered if it was the right choice, but now I realize it's not about validating that choice, but about making it right. I'll continue to devote myself to research for others. The future surely looks bright. Squinting at the dazzling sunset for a moment, the rural town came into view. I'm looking forward to the future. Upon hearing Maria's words, I slowly nodded in agreement.
I pulled into the driveway of Tristan's house, heart swelling with excitement to surprise my sweet grandson Eli on his 8th birthday. Little did I know the surprise would be entirely mine, one that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my son and daughter-in-law. The doorbell went unanswered after several rings, so I tried the handle. Unlocked. "Hello? Tristan? Nadia?" I called out, letting myself inside. An eerie silence blanketed the house, normally filled with the laughter and pitter-patter of little feet. A muffled whimper drew me towards the staircase. Under the stairs, a small door caught my eye, the kind meant for storage, not for... No, the thought was too horrifying to entertain. "Eli? Honey, are you in there?" I gasped, chest tightening. "Grandma?" His tiny voice trembled from behind the door. "Help me, please." With shaking hands, I tried the knob, but it wouldn't budge, locked from the outside. 1,000 scenarios raced through my mind, each more disturbing than the next. I steadied myself against the wall, guilt and dread crashing over me in waves for not visiting sooner. From the corner of my eye, I spotted a toolbox and grabbed a hammer, my fragile grasp on composure crumbling. "Stand back, sweetie." 3 solid strikes, and the flimsy door splintered open. There he was, my beautiful grandson, cowering in the dimly lit space, eyes wide with fear and relief. Tears stained his pale cheeks, his vibrant red hair matted and unkempt. "Oh, Eli." I choked out, scooping him into my arms, cradling him close. He clung to me with a desperation that broke my heart into pieces. I'm so sorry, I mumbled into his hair, cursing myself for 1,000 should-haves and could-haves. His small body trembled like a leaf against me. Once the initial shock subsided, a burning rage replaced the sorrow. How could Tristan and Nadia do this? What kind of parents? No, what kind of human beings? "It's okay, honey, you're safe now," I assured him, doing my best to keep my tone even and soothing, despite the maelstrom within. "Can you tell me how long?" He shook his head fiercely, eyes squeezed shut as if to block out the memories. "Too long. Days, I think. I'd yell and bang, but they never came. Just slid food under sometimes." White-hot fury coursed through my veins, and I silently vowed to ensure Tristan and Nadia paid for this unforgivable cruelty towards their own flesh and blood. But first, I needed to get Eli out of this house of horrors. "Pack a bag. Anything you want to take with you. We're leaving." My tone brooked no argument. He nodded obediently, looking smaller and frailer than any child should. By the time I'd calmed down enough to call Tristan, the rage had crystallized into a cold, hard knot of determination in my gut. He picked up after several rings, utterly nonchalant, like he hadn't just committed one of the worst betrayals a parent could. "Hi, Mom. What's up?" Those 3 words, spoken so casually, were the spark that ignited my fury into an inferno. "What do you mean, what's up?" I snarled into the phone, my fury simmering just below the surface. "I'm at your house, and I just found Eli locked in a closet under the stairs." There was a brief pause, and I could practically see Tristan's nonchalant shrug through the phone. "So? That's just how we discipline him when he misbehaves. He knows the rules." My jaw dropped, revulsion churning in my gut. How could he be so callous about treating his own son like a prisoner? "You can't be serious, Tristan. He's just a little boy." Don't you dare try to tell me how to parent my own kid, Mom. His voice took on an unpleasant edge. You're overreacting as usual. He's fine, just throwing one of his tantrums. Overreacting? You locked your 8-year-old child in a cramped, dark space for days with barely any food or human contact. What's wrong with you? I was practically shouting now, anger and disbelief warring within me. We have it under control, he said with an infuriating calmness that made my blood boil. This doesn't concern you. Stay out of it. I opened my mouth to unleash another verbal lashing, but the dial tone cut me off. He'd hung up. Chest heaving, I stared at my trembling hands as a chilling realization crept over me. This was no one-time disciplinary tactic gone too far. The way Tristan had spoken, so coldly and matter-of-fact, hinted at something much more sinister. An ingrained pattern of cruelty, of depriving an innocent child of his basic rights and needs. Shaking my head, I leaned back against the wall, fighting against the swell of nausea. How could my own son, my flesh and blood, be capable of such monstrous behavior? What kind of person had he become while I wasn't watching? Unbidden, memories flickered through my mind. Happy childhood moments, Tristan's bright smile and pealing laughter as we baked cookies or played in the yard. It felt like a lifetime ago, those echoes of the warm, loving boy I'd raised. Where had I gone wrong? What had warped and twisted him into this shell of a man? Or had the seeds of cruelty lurked beneath the surface all along, only to bloom once I looked away? A tiny sniffle made me jerk upright. Eli stood in the hallway, bag clutched to his chest, eyes rimmed with fresh tears. Of course he'd overheard every ugly word. Crossing the room in 2 long strides, I gathered him into my arms, murmuring soft, soothing words into his hair. It's gonna be okay, honey. I'm gonna make sure they never ever hurt you again. And in that moment, as his small arms wound around my neck, my path became clear. No more agonizing over where Tristan had strayed. It didn't matter now. He was beyond reach, beyond saving maybe. But Eli, that sweet, innocent little boy, still had a chance at a decent life. A life full of kindness, love, and stability that every child deserved. Even if it meant waging war against my own son, I would stop at nothing to rescue him from this nightmare. Settling Eli into the passenger seat, I forced a reassuring smile. Why don't you pick a movie for us to watch at my place? Something with happy endings. He nodded, mustering up a watery grin that tugged at my heart. In that moment, I made a silent vow. By the time we reached our happy ending, Tristan would face the consequences for his unforgivable crimes. No matter what it took, I would make sure of it. The drive back to my place was a blur, my mind spinning with half-formed plans of how to handle the situation with Tristan and Nadia. One thing was certain, I couldn't take them on alone. I needed allies. My first call was to Dale, my estranged husband. We'd fallen out of touch over the years, our marriage slowly eroding until the distance became a chasm. But he was still Eli's grandfather, and I had to hope some shred of paternal instinct remained. Dale, it's Lorraine, I said when he picked up, trying to keep my tone neutral. I need your help with something. There was a pregnant pause, then a resigned sigh. What is it this time? Clenching my jaw, I willed myself to remain calm. It's about Eli, our grandson. That seemed to get his attention. Go on. The words came tumbling out in a breathless rush. Eli's captivity, Tristan's shocking dismissal of it all, my own fears for the boy's well-being. To his credit, Dale listened in stone-faced silence until I finally trailed off. You're telling me our son had his own kid locked up, like some kind of prisoner? His voice was dangerously low. Yes. I glanced over at Eli, slumped against the window in an exhausted sleep. And judging by how casual Tristan was about it, I don't think this was the first time. Another heavy pause then. That's it. I'm calling the cops. We'll have those 2 psychos arrested for child endangerment. Wait, I cut him off sharply. As satisfying as that idea was, it felt too rash, too risky. We can't go to the authorities until we have rock-solid proof. You know how the system can fail kids. So what do you suggest? My gaze settled on Eli's sleeping form, and a steely resolve solidified within me. We need to investigate on our own first, figure out exactly what's going on, and gather evidence of any wrongdoing, so it's airtight. You want us to perform a full background check on our own son? Dale sounded skeptical. On both of them, I clarified grimly. There has to be some explanation for why they're treating Eli so horrendously. We find that, we'll get to the bottom of this whole mess. A heavy silence then. Fine, but not because I care about that boy's welfare anymore. His voice dripped with disdain. Just because he's my grandson, you know, bloodline and all that. I bristled at his callousness, but bit back a scathing retort. I'd deal with Dale's indifference towards Eli later. For now, I had to play along if I wanted a hope of gaining his help. Okay then, we start digging into their lives first thing tomorrow. Finances, personal records, everything. No stone left unturned. Dale grunted in assent. And if we find anything? A burst of vindictive satisfaction surged through me. Then we make them pay. The next few days passed by in a whirlwind of information gathering. Between my tenacious research skills and Dale's business connections, we slowly unpicked every tangled thread of Tristan and Nadia's lives. Their finances were in shambles, racked with debt and comic strings of bad investments. A large portion of debt seemed tied to Nadia's previous marriage, which ended messily and likely cost a small fortune in legal fees. Speaking of her ex, I made a point to track him down. The details he shared painted an ugly picture of Nadia's past. Accusations of infidelity, substance abuse, even violence. Could she still be clinging to those toxic patterns? As for Tristan, there were signs of shady business dealings and despicable con artistry. Several former employers and partners had fallen victim to his schemes over the years. Had he been grooming Eli as his next payday? You think they've been stealing from the kid? Dale wondered grimly when I shared my suspicions. Seems like the type of lowlife move they'd pull. I clenched my jaw, a wave of nausea crashing over me. The more I learned, the more monstrous my own son and daughter-in-law became. Raking a hand through my hair, I turned to face Dale with a look of grim determination. Well, we can't let them get away with it any longer. It's time we put an end to their sick games. With our findings laid out before us, Dale and I began plotting our next moves. We had more than enough damning evidence against Tristan and Nadia. Now it was a matter of using it effectively. We could release it all to the media, let them crucify those two jackals in the court of public opinion, Dale suggested with relish. I shook my head, worrying my bottom lip. As satisfying as that would be, we can't. Not yet. It would just put Eli in the crosshairs and make him the victim all over again. Then what? Take it to the cops like I originally suggested? Exhaling slowly, I considered our options. Going through official channels could mean months of legal red tape and he said, she said battles. Meanwhile, Eli would suffer. No, we needed a surefire way to take them down swiftly while securing his safety, a way to force their hand and back them into a corner with no escape. I have a friend, I began slowly. From law school, Martha Wilkins. She's made a career handling cases just like this one. Crooked parents trying to milk their kids' inheritance, neglect, you name it. Understanding dawned in Dale's eyes. So you'll get this hotshot lawyer lady to put the screws to Tristan and Nadia? Air all their dirty laundry in court? Among other things, I replied cryptically. Help me gather up all the paperwork. I'll set up a meeting with Martha for tomorrow. Martha's office was as sleek and professional as I remembered, though her warm smile and sharp eyes were the same as ever. Lorraine, it's been too long. She enveloped me in a brief hug before guiding us to a pair of leather chairs. Though I must say, I wish our reunion was under better circumstances. With a sigh, I waved a hand at the boxes of files surrounding us. That's an understatement. Take a look at what we've uncovered about my son and daughter-in-law. For the next 2 hours, Martha pored over our findings with her trademark meticulous intensity. Her brow furrowed deeper with each new layer of depravity revealed, the financial deceptions, signs of blatant neglect, even the account from Nadia's ex-husband. I've heard of money-grubbing parents before, she muttered, shaking her head in disgust. But keeping their own child as a literal prisoner in the name of fleecing his trust fund? That's a new low, even for me. Unconsciously, my fists clenched in my lap. So you'll take the case? Do everything in your power to make sure Tristan and Nadia face the consequences? You don't even need to ask. Martha's expression was one of grim resolve. I'll call in every favor I can to push this through the courts at top speed. We'll bury those two beneath an avalanche of evidence before they know what hit them. She leaned back, fixing me with an intent look. But I'll need your help, too. As Eli's closest living relatives, your testimony and cooperation will be instrumental. I met her gaze steadily. Anything. I'll do whatever it takes to protect that boy. A ghost of a smile played across Martha's lips. That's what I wanted to hear. Over the next few weeks, a whirlwind of depositions, documentation, and strategy sessions consumed every free moment. Martha was ruthlessly efficient, anticipating every possible angle of defense Tristan and Nadia might attempt. At her urging, I took steps to be appointed as Eli's legal guardian, should we wrest him from their custody. It was a lengthy, draining process, but I gladly endured it all with the goal of giving him a stable home in sight. When at last the court date arrived, armed with a veritable armory of evidence, and flanked by Martha's wily paralegal team, I felt an odd sense of calm. The fireworks would come soon enough. Are you sure you want to do this today? Dale eyed me sidelong as we strode up the courthouse steps, Eli's small hand encased in mine. In front of the whole family, on his birthday of all days? My jaw set in a stubborn line. It has to be today. They've had this coming for too long. In truth, I'd chosen this date and venue very deliberately. Our entire extended clan would be gathered at Tristan and Nadia's place for Eli's 8th birthday party later. What better way to expose their sins against their own flesh and blood than surrounded by all those they'd deceived? I could only imagine the looks on their faces when they realized the Negligent Parents of the Year award was theirs. Sure enough, my son and daughter-in-law were already seated with the rest of the family when we arrived, the perfect picture of domestic bliss. A tide of expectant murmurs washed over the crowd as the group recognized Martha striding in behind us. Nadia was the first to spot us, her perfectly curated smile slipping ever so slightly. What's going on here? Tristan rose to his feet, all artificial joviality. I should be asking you three the same thing. What's with the hostility, Mom? Draping a supportive arm around Eli's shoulders, I leveled him with a look that could cut glass. Maybe you should ask your son about hostility. Confusion rippled through the assembled guests, but Nadia merely rolled her eyes in condescending amusement. For God's sake, Lorraine, not this again. Shut your mouth, Dale growled, and I started slightly at the venom in his tone. You don't get to dismiss her concerns after the sick crap you two pulled. Murmurs intensified, tinged with disbelief and unease. Martha stepped forward, cool and unruffled, as she spread a series of damning dossiers across the table. We have extensive documentation of your actions towards Elijah, including willful neglect, financial exploitation of his trust fund, and the unjustified deprivation of basic needs. She gestured for silence as shocked gasps erupted around the room. I'll skip the niceties and give you one opportunity to start making amends. Full custody of the boy will be transferred to Mrs. Hawthorne here immediately, pending the court's final ruling. You'll also repay every cent you siphoned from his accounts. There was a beat of stunned silence as the words sank in. Twin looks of abject horror twisted Tristan and Nadia's faces before morphing into snares of rage. You've got to be freaking kidding me. Tristan slammed his hands on the table, making several guests jump. Just because Mom had some stupid delusions about our parenting? You're blowing this way out of proportion. Get off your high horses, both of you. Nadia jutted her chin haughtily, a studied mask of disdain falling into place to conceal her panic. Our finances are none of your business, nor how we raise our son. My heart clenched at the way she refused to acknowledge Eli as her own. Martha arched an unimpressed eyebrow. So I'll take that as a refusal to cooperate, then? You're damn right. Tristan looked about 2 seconds from vaulting over the table. We don't have to listen to your self-righteous garbage. On the contrary. Another folder landed on the table with a thud, and the image of a familiar dingy room, harshly illuminated, filled the screen. You'll find this garbage quite enlightening, I think. A collective gasp rang out through the room as the grim reality set in. Surveillance footage of the tiny closet space where Eli had been imprisoned for days. His tear-stained face and muffled cries were plain as day, surrounded by harsh shadows and stifling walls. Tristan went ashen, mouth working soundlessly as Nadia slumped against her seat, hand fluttering to her mouth. I ground my teeth, fighting back the urge to throttle them both then and there. How dare they look so appalled now, after willingly inflicting such cruel conditions on their own child? The outrage poured forth from our friends and relatives in waves of angry shouting that drowned out all my instincts for vengeance. Because in that moment, the devastated look in Eli's eyes was all I could focus on. He didn't deserve any of this ugly airing of family secrets and toxic legacy of betrayal that wasn't his shame to carry. At that moment, I was fiercely glad Martha had taken charge. Her pragmatic ruthlessness spared Eli from having to witness our blistering condemnations of the parents who had so grievously failed him. No, he'd been through enough ugliness. It was time to start looking towards a future of healing. Gathering his slight form against me, I murmured low reassurances into his hair as the chaos swirled around us. This wasn't the end, not by a long shot, but it was the beginning of something new, I realized with a surge of hope. A road towards redemption, away from this poisoned legacy of cruelty and neglect. Tristan and Nadia might have been battles lost, but the war for Eli's soul was just getting started. And this time, I was determined to win. The aftermath of our dramatic confrontation was a whirlwind that still makes my head spin in retrospect. Martha wasted no time, pressing her advantage with cold precision while Tristan and Nadia floundered. Within hours, emergency custody papers were signed and law enforcement was on the scene. Nadia dissolved into hysterics as they slapped cuffs on her wrists, shrieking invectives that would have made a sailor blush. Tristan, for his part, maintained a seething, sullen silence right up until they separated them for booking. Then the dam broke. Staring at me with undisguised loathing, he fought against the officer's restraints like a rabid dog. "You did this," he snarled, spittle flying. "You poisoned everything with your deluded vendetta." "Your actions poisoned this family," I shot back, unflinching even as Dale shifted protectively in front of Eli. "Maybe if you hadn't been so reckless with your son's well-being, so blind to anything but your greed." "He's not yours anymore," Tristan continued ranting, words slurring as his anger spiraled into near incoherency. "You don't get to sweep in and play hero after years of being a lousy, inattentive gur." The backhanded blow caught him square across the jaw, snapping his head sideways with a meaty thwack. Even the officers gave Dale a wide berth as he towered over Tristan's crumpled form, chest heaving like a bellows. "Don't you dare talk about what kind of grandparent she is," he growled through gritted teeth. "When your own twisted minds led you to torment an innocent child for money." Silence fell, heavy as a pall. Tristan glared up at his father through a mask of bloody spittle and swelling flesh, the fight temporarily beaten out of him. With a last contemptuous sneer, Dale shouldered past the stunned officers and came to collect Eli and me. "You did the right thing," he murmured gruffly into my hair as we embraced, the closest to affection he could muster in that moment. "That boy's better off with anyone but those two excuses for human beings." I squeezed him fiercely, the adrenaline high from the confrontation rapidly waning to leave me drained, yet perversely buoyed by our victory. It was done. Eli was finally truly safe. All that remained was ensuring he got the love and care he deserved going forward. And that, I silently vowed, was a battle I would fight with every last breath. With the initial crisis resolved, a strange sort of limbo settled over us in the following weeks. Though the custody papers granted me temporary guardianship of Eli, the road ahead remained fraught with challenges. I lost track of how many legal meetings, court dates, and blistering cross-examinations Martha put us through. Every shred of Tristan and Nadia's elaborate tangle of lies was meticulously unpicked, cauterized, and readied as exhibits. The fraud charges alone were damning, given the paper trail of diverted funds from Eli's trust account. But Martha assured me that the abuse charges, locking him away for days at a time, withholding food and necessities, would inevitably result in the maximum sentence. "The system doesn't take kindly to parents who view their own offspring as caged commodities," she said grimly. "We'll see they're made examples of." I could only nod, ignoring the unsettling relish in her tone. Personal feelings aside, Martha was a ruthless ally in this fight, and I wasn't about to argue with results. For his part, Eli remained a subdued shadow throughout the proceedings. Despite our best efforts, he shied away from counseling and group activities, haunted eyes downcast whenever Tristan or Nadia's names arose. "It's going to take time for those wounds to heal," Dale cautioned whenever I fretted over the boy's withdrawal. And rationally, I knew he was right. Overcoming the trauma and emotional scarring inflicted by one's own parents couldn't be undone overnight. But that comprehension did little to ease the mounting guilt and worry gnawing at my heart. Had I failed Eli by not recognizing the signs sooner? All these years of missing holidays and birthdays, could I ever make that up to him now? The answers didn't come easily. But bit by bit, through patience and stubborn determination on both our parts, the walls began to show hairline cracks. It started small. Eli timidly agreeing to color with me one quiet afternoon, while Dale watched his loud courtroom shows, as oblivious to our bonding as ever. From there, we progressed to games of Go Fish and Crazy Eights, my genuine laughter at his horrendous bluffing faces earning the first tiny quirks of his lips. Before long, laughter and chattiness seeped back into the house like a palliative balm after the rolling darkness. I introduced Eli to swimming, his initial trepidation melting into uninhibited glee as he cut through the waters with strong, sure strokes. An art class yielded the first vibrant, unrestrained streaks of color across fresh canvases, and through it all, the fragile bond between us grew stronger with each new smile, each peal of laughter replaying in my mind like a soothing melody. The boy I'd feared was too wounded to recover, blossomed with each day of freedom from his parents' toxic influence. There were still bad days, of course. Triggers that sent Eli retreating into a pensive shell of himself for hours or even days at a time. But we weathered those storms together, side by side, and emerged stronger for it in the end. On one such day, the sun had long since set beyond the den's picture windows before Eli stirred from his hunched position on the couch. Rubbing his eyes, he shuffled over and wordlessly crawled into my lap, nestling against me in a contented silence. My breath caught as my arms instinctively folded around his small frame, marveling at the implicit trust in his actions. Setting my chin atop his tousled curls, I let out a shaky sigh, gathering the shreds of composure that loneliness and fresh memories of Tristan's cruelty had frayed. In that moment, gently rocking my grandson, I could scarcely believe how far we'd come. Him from that haunted, hollowed-out husk I'd first beheld in the closet, and me from the guilt-racked woman tormented over failing to prevent his suffering, holding this quietly content child bruised but not broken by the ugliness he'd endured, filled me with a sense of purpose more profound than I'd ever known. Scars would remain, but they didn't have to define him or me. All that mattered now was nurturing the resilience and fighting spirit, persevering against all odds. And that was a battle. I vowed silently into the stillness that I would fight beside him every single day until my last breath. The night of the sentencing hearing was one I'll never forget. Tristan and Nadia were led in wearing matching orange jumpsuits, hands and feet shackled. Where Nadia had her head bowed in sullen defeat, Tristan met my gaze head-on, with undisguised hatred burning in his eyes. I returned it with a look of cold indifference. He no longer had any power to rattle me. Martha stood ramrod straight beside us, lips pressed into a thin line of grim satisfaction as the judge entered. She'd cautioned us against expecting the maximum sentences, but her reputation preceded her. I had a feeling the so-called justice system wouldn't dare cross her. And I was right. After a mercifully brief recounting of the relevant facts, the hammer came down harder than I dared hope. For the crimes of child abuse, neglect, fraud, and embezzlement against a minor child's trust fund, I sentence you both to 15 years imprisonment with no possibility of parole. Nadia swayed on her feet as if struck, complexion going deathly pale. But my eyes were locked on Tristan, drinking in the dismay and impotent fury twisting his features into an ugly rictus. Additionally, you will be compelled to make full restitution of the stolen funds to Mr. Elijah Hawthorne upon your release. Failure to comply will result in an extension of your sentences. Martha's shark-like smile was triumphant as she caught my eye amid the courtroom din, mouthing, "I told you so." She'd played her gambit flawlessly, as always. Tristan was still yelling his outrage as he was hauled away, vitriol spewing from his lips. But the hatred in his eyes when they met mine burned itself into my memory, searing and indelible. I refused to give him the satisfaction of flinching away, because in the end, he and Nadia were the ones vanquished, beaten at their own twisted game by the family whose bond they'd tried to shatter. It was a lesson I hoped haunted their every waking moment behind bars. Eli watched the whole proceeding in numb silence. I ached to pull him close, to shield him from the ugliness being laid so cruelly bare. But he was no longer a scared little boy. He'd borne witness to the depths of human cruelty and prevailed through courage and resilience. This was closure, plain and simple. One last look at the monsters who'd tried so viciously to break him before leaving them behind forever. The drive home passed in a blur, none of us speaking. What words could encapsulate the profound shift this day signified? It was Eli who finally broke the heavy silence as we pulled up to the house, fixing me with those serious green eyes that had seen far too much darkness for one so young. "I'm glad it's really over," he murmured. "That they got what they deserved, you know." I reached across the bench seat to squeeze his hand. "Me too, honey. It's all over now." The days and weeks that followed were a whirlwind of press, legal wrangling, and celebration from friends and family over our hard-won justice. But the moment that stood out most vividly was Eli's first art show at his new school. He'd been champing at the bit to show me his latest masterpieces, brimming with the pride and excitement of any kid his age. And finally, on opening night, I got to bask in the brilliant splashes of color and rebirth he'd committed to canvas. Each one was a searing reflection of the journey that led us here. Dark, muted tones juxtaposed against explosions of vibrant life. Harsh lines fracturing then melding back together in a mosaic of regeneration. Wordless stories of tragedy and redemption laid bare in acrylic strokes, more poignant than any writer could capture. "That one there is how I felt for a long time," Eli explained, gripping my hand as we moved from canvas to canvas. His voice was contemplative, worlds away from the hollow echoes I'll never unhear from that closet. Scared, sad, like everything was cracking apart into pieces that I couldn't fix. He paused before a canvas emblazoned with a brilliant phoenix taking flight, wings unfurling in a blaze of crimson and gold. But this one is us now, rising up out of all the ugliness and hurt to start over, finding the color and beauty in life on the other side of the storm. Does that make sense? I pulled him close, blinking back tears of fierce pride and wonder at the resilient, insightful young man he was blossoming into. Another example of the tenacity with which new life can spring from unimaginable darkness. "It makes perfect sense," I murmured into his hair. Because in that moment, bathed in the kaleidoscopic rebirth of his art, I saw the first rays of the new dawn we'd both fought so hard to reach. And as I held him, surrounded by this latest rebirth, one truth became startlingly clear. We would meet each fresh challenge rise over the horizon together, standing united before whatever storms lay ahead. Mother and grandson soldiering onwards into the light.
I'm Angela, a 30-year-old. You'll never be as important as me to call. He will always choose me over you. Don't expect anything else from him. This is what my mother-in-law, Mary, told me when I met her. Yes, this happened in our first meeting itself. It goes without saying that I was extremely embarrassed by her behavior. The entire time she kept insulting me and calling me worthless. She said, "I don't know how my son could choose a girl like you. Then again, no one deserves my baby. He's just mine. Cole is the best kid ever and loves his mom. You're just a temporary person in his life. I know he is your favorite son, Mary. I also know that he loves you a lot. You are his mother, after all. Yes, I don't even think you can replace him. My boy will always choose me. I can't replace his mother, Mary. I am just trying to be his partner and a good girlfriend. You don't have to see me as a competition. I want us to have a relationship." "Well, you can never be my competition. Besides, you are only here for a while, so don't get carried away. He will dump you sooner than later." Mary's unabashed rudeness really shocked me. You see, my then-boyfriend Cole is actually nothing like her. He is super kind and a very caring person. It's like Cole and Mary have completely different personalities. Needless to say, the whole interaction hurt me like hell. I would never ask Cole to choose me over his mom. I lost my parents when I was young, so I know how important parents are in our life. Cole has always been a loving partner to me. I also knew that he holds his mother in high regard. His father, Billy, divorced Mary when they were kids. Cole never knew the reason for the divorce. However, he did hold some resentment towards Billy. They have a relationship, but Cole prefers his mother over everyone else. He thinks his mother sacrificed a lot to raise him. I too held Mary in high regard from the stories Cole told me. He once said, "All my ex-girlfriends hated my mom. I have no idea why. She's a little dependent on me, but that's because she never married again, you know. She spends a lot of time taking care of us. Mom never had the time to date, so she expects a lot of emotional support from her kids. She sounds like a great person, Cole, especially since you talk so highly of her. She also raised such a fine man like you. I already hold her in high regard. See, at least you consider that. I don't know why no one else could tolerate her. We got to be a little compassionate, you know. I can't just leave her like Dad did. Cole, I'm sure they had their reasons. But you are right, you can't just drop your mom off for anyone. It turns out I would end up being one of those girls in the future. I would hate his mother and make things difficult for him. His siblings, Dean and Tamara, did try to warn me when I met them at my house. They were very warm towards me. After the disastrous meeting with Mary, knowing Dean and Tamara was refreshing. I was pretty confused about how Cole and his siblings turned out so nice with Mary as their mom. Dean and Tamara made things a little clearer for me. They said, "Angela, I know you've met our mother. You don't have to pretend to like her. We don't worship her as Cole does. He can be a little too naive when it comes to Mom. Yeah, I mean, Mom did raise us, but she wasn't exactly a star parent, although Cole might think otherwise. I think Mary didn't like me a lot. I tried my best to reassure her, but she seems firm in her judgment of me. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I just hope she didn't say anything overly hurtful. Look, I don't know if Cole told you, but she's always been this way towards his girlfriends. I actually have a lot of stories to tell. Yeah, she did have a habit of chasing them away. Mom just can't take it when Cole and we give attention to someone other than her. She thinks just because she chose not to date, she is entitled to our time and attention. Angela, we really like you, so take this as a warning. Cole can be very dense when it comes to Mom. He takes her side most of the time. We know it has cost him many relationships. Don't let Mom win this time. You are perfect for Cole. I don't know, guys, it feels very weird to compete with his mother. I don't have my parents anymore, so I feel bad for Mary. I don't want to take Cole away from her. Believe me, Angela, he really needs to be away from her. Otherwise, he will never be happy. Dean and Tamara gave some good insight into what my relationship will become. It was true that Cole spent a lot of time with his mother. He even often canceled dates to be with her. Mary also called him over whenever there was any minor inconvenience. She never worked and was still getting alimony from Billy. I did meet Billy a long time after I met Mary and the siblings. Billy seemed to be more like Cole and the siblings. It was easy to see why he had to divorce Mary. I never had a problem with Cole canceling dates for Mary. I would make exceptions when she generally had an emergency. However, his constant catering to Mary wore me down. Dean and Tamara's words kept ringing in my head. I knew it was time to sit down and have a conversation with Cole, so I said to him, "Co, I like that you take care of your mother so much, but you're starting to neglect me a lot. This month, you have canceled all our dates just to be with her. It's getting annoying. You know, Mom relies on me a lot. Dean and Tamara don't bother to visit anymore, so I'm the only one who has to help. I can understand if she needs your help, or if there's an emergency. But you've canceled our dates for no reason. You don't have to run to her when she is slightly bored. Well, she is my mom and doesn't have anyone else. Do you expect me to drop her when I'm with you? I'm not saying that, Cole. I just want you to start thinking about which visits are important and which are not. No matter how much I try to make him understand, Cole never agreed with my reasoning. However, he did promise to make it up to me. I was pretty miffed but didn't complain because he was trying his best. Slowly, I was starting to realize why none of his exes liked Mary. She was unbearable. Every time I was with Cole, she would try to get his attention. When she realized I was more permanent than she thought, she started to become more demanding. It all came to a head when Cole proposed to me. I obviously said yes because I loved this man. He was the man of my dreams and exactly everything I wanted. Both Cole and I were over the moon. We decided to invite his family for dinner so that we could announce our engagement. Cole happily called his family and asked them to come over. Billy was the first one who came. He was super excited for us and gave us his heartiest congratulations. Dean and Tamara also came early and were extremely excited for the wedding. But when Mary walked in and saw the ring on my finger, she just flipped. "Carl, am I seeing things? Did you propose to her?" she said. "Yes, Mom, I popped the question yesterday." She said yes. I asked everyone to dinner to announce the engagement. You have to be kidding me. What is wrong with you, Cole? You are too young to settle down with whoever you find on the street. You didn't even consult me before asking her. Mom, what are you saying? You always knew I was going to propose to her, but I never gave you permission. How dare you propose without asking me? Why did you spend so much money on the ring? This stupid girl doesn't deserve anything so expensive. Angela, are you happy now that you have taken away my boy? Mary, what are you saying? You should be happy for us. We love each other. You are my family as well now. Mary, calm down. It's natural Cole would settle down with Angela. She is a great girlfriend. We all knew the engagement was coming. Stop making a scene. This is ridiculous. Cole doesn't need your permission to marry. He's old enough to make his own decisions. Mary just wouldn't listen to anyone. She kept screaming at us and calling us names. Some of the things she said about me were downright nasty. I just can't repeat them here. Cole was pretty stunned throughout the whole debacle. He didn't say much either. It was just Mary screaming while the rest of us tried to calm her down. After a while of screaming and crying at us, Mary left. The rest of us decided to sit for dinner so that the food isn't wasted. Before everyone left, Tamara pulled me aside and said, "Angela, I think it's time you set some boundaries with Mom. She called you horrible things in front of us. Cole needs to learn to stand up for you." I know, Tamara. I think I've had enough. I tried so hard to make her like me. I won't do that anymore. She has disrespected me a lot today. I won't put up with this anymore. I hope Cole understands. Hold your ground. If he loves you and wants you, he'll listen. With that, the group left me and Cole in our rented home. After cleaning up everything, I signaled Cole to the living room. It was time to put some boundaries between us and Mary. I sat him down and said, "Mary has been horrible to us today. I think we can agree to that. She overreacted a little. I guess I shouldn't have sprung this on her. If only I had discussed this with her." Nicole, you are a grown man and don't have to discuss these things with your mom. Why are you still defending her? Didn't you hear what she said about me? Are you okay with that? Of course not, Angela. I'm not okay with that. But it's just that she has never behaved this way before. Oh, trust me, Cole, she has done this before. Every time you were away, Mary used to berate me and call me names. She is obsessed with you. Can't you see that? What are you saying, Angela? My mom has been talking about you all this while. Why didn't you tell me before? That's because you have a habit of defending her every time. Look, I know she is your mom, and you want her in your life. But I'm going to have low contact with her. You need to rethink your actions and stop catering to her demands all the time. We discussed the problems with Mary, and Cole agreed to put up boundaries. I was happy that finally he was starting to see through Mary's toxic ways. However, he still held her dear and refused to berate her for anything. Thankfully, he went over to talk to Mary and told her to stay away from me. The wedding planning was equally exhausting, with Mary creating trouble. She even went as far as to change the decorations and try to cancel the venue. My maid of honor had the foresight to install passwords so that only Cole and I could make the changes. When we were informed about Mary's meddling, I was furious. However, Cole tried to play it down and promised to handle Mary on his own. Things were pretty tense between us as well. Mary absolutely lost it when she found out we bought a house together. Me and Cole found our dream house, and Billy offered to help with the down payment. We bought it immediately and put both our names on it. Mary didn't like this at all. She even called Cole and berated him for ignoring her wishes and getting a house with me. Mary wanted Cole to live with her once her lease was up. She also didn't want him to spend money on a house with me. The wedding itself was uneventful since Mary was given a stern talking to by Cole. My bridesmaids and maid of honor also kept an eye on her so that she couldn't mess things up. However, things went south when we went on our honeymoon. One night, we got a call from Mary. She said, "Cole, I have been in an accident. I'm at the hospital. The doctors are saying that I have become paralyzed. I need you right now." "What? Where are you, Mom? Tell me the name of the hospital. We will come back immediately. You should have called me sooner." I didn't want to spoil a honeymoon. I knew Angela would not let you come back. "Don't worry, I will get discharged tomorrow. But how I manage on my own. I can't even move. There's no one to take care of me." "Don't worry, Mom, you can stay with us. I'll take care of you. I'm sure Angela is okay with this. I'll come to get you when I return. Take care of yourself." Cole quickly called up his siblings and Billy as well. However, they were pretty confused by the whole deal. They didn't even know Mary had an accident. Apparently, when they called her up, she forbade them from visiting her in the hospital. Cole was pissed and said that Mary was mad at everyone for abandoning her. He also felt bad for neglecting her last year, so he unanimously decided to end our honeymoon there. There was nothing I could do. When we went back, Mary was already back to her house. She was in a wheelchair and started to cry when she saw Cole, and Cole assured her that he would never abandon her again. Or this time he never even asked me anything. Mary also kept giving me weird looks and making snide comments about how I can't keep Cole away from her. I stayed quiet because there was no point in attacking her when she was hurt. One thing was definitely bothering me. Mary never showed us any medical documents or doctor's notes. She even refused to say which hospital she had been to. Cole ignored those red flags and simply told me to leave her alone. When we took her to our house, Mary said, "Son, you seriously can't think about putting me in a guest room. It would be so uncomfortable. It would be better if I get the master bedroom. Your room is so much bigger and has all my needs. I'm so sick right now, I need comfort. Of course, Mom, if you think the master bedroom will be better, you can stay there. We won't mind. I just want you to be comfortable right now." Thank you so much, Cole. I hope Angela is not mad at me. You guys didn't even get to enjoy your new room first. I can stay in the guest room if she wants. Who cares if I'm uncomfortable? You can stay in the master bedroom, Mary. I never objected to it. Mary just looked at me and smirked. She was clearly enjoying the fact that Cole was paying attention to her. Cole never discusses anything with me before giving in to his mother's demands. He kept blaming himself for not being there for her. Dean and Tamara were also very weirded out by the situation. Everything seemed too suspicious for us. I left it alone because I didn't want Cole to get the wrong idea. Things went pretty much downhill after that. Mary monopolized Cole's time after coming home from work. She called him to her room and kept him there till dinner. Even at dinner, Mary insisted Cole eat with her. I was left to eat alone in the kitchen. It was like Cole never had time for me. Mary also ordered me around when I was home. If I told her no, she would call Cole and cry to him. I and Cole have often gotten into arguments because he wanted me to do more. However, I was starting to hit rock bottom with him. My suspicions about Mary's health never went away, so I decided to keep an eye on her. One thing that Mary never knew was that we had cameras in the master bedroom. It was in place so we could keep track of things if they go missing. Neither I nor Cole told her about it. One day when I was in the office, I decided to look at the recorded videos. Lo and behold, it was Mary walking perfectly fine and looking through all the drawers and cabinets in my room. Guys, I was shocked. Sure, I had my suspicions, but I didn't know Mary would do something like this. After finding the truth, I decided to wait before confronting her. Cole and I were still arguing and didn't want to piss him off anymore. So I was biding my time and waiting for the right moment. The perfect time was just about to come. About 4 months after Mary moved in, she told us that we needed to talk. We went to her room and waited for her to begin. She said, "You guys know that I've been going to the doctor with my friend. Today the doctor said that he can fix me, however, it would take a lot of money to do it." "That's great news, Mom. I'm sure this treatment will help you get better." "Yes, but you know I don't have that much money. So I was wondering if you can help me out." "We will be happy to help, Mary, but we don't have that much money lying around." "Don't be selfish, Angela. You have this house. If you sell it now, the money will be enough for the treatment. You can just move in with me and stay there after that." "Mom, it's a big decision to make. We want you to get better, but I can't believe this. My own son doesn't want to help me." "Okay, then go ahead and kick me out. I would rather die in the street than stay here any longer." "Mom, don't say that. We'll figure something out. Just give me time." "No, just sell this damn house. You don't need such a big house anyway. Angela doesn't get to live in a big house while I rot away in a small. Sell the house and give me the money." "Mom, calm down. We will find a way. Just let me think about it." Mary just kept accusing Cole of not loving her. She was so intense that Cole was on the verge of tears. He was almost ready to sell the house for her. That's when I decided it was enough. I said, "Stop it, Mary. Why are you pressuring him like this? I know you're not sick at all. Your paralysis is a lie. Stop this nonsense now. We are not selling the house for you." "Oh my, Angela, what is wrong with you? Why would you say something like that?" "Come here, she wants to call me a liar." "That's because you are one, Cole. I know you think I am insane, but Mary has been lying to us. Do you remember the cameras we had in the master bedroom?" "Yes, what about them?" "I accessed them a few days back. Mary's just fine. She's acting like she's paralyzed. Here's a compiled video of her moving around just fine. I gave Cole my phone to see the evidence." Mary went white as a ghost. She was trying to prevent Cole from seeing the video. She knew I had caught her in the act. After watching the videos carefully, Cole said, "What the hell is this, Mom? You were acting all this time. Why would you do that?" "It's not my fault, Cole. You have been drifting away from me. There was nothing else I could do. Angela doesn't deserve all the money and attention you give her. I should be a priority, not her. Of course, Angela is my priority. She's my freaking wife. I would always be there for you when you need me, but you are getting overwhelming for us. How can you say that? I am your mother. You have to sell this house and move in with me. I had to act like a worthless disabled person to gain your attention. I deserve something for going through this nonsense. You are not entitled to this house, Mary. You should be grateful we haven't kicked you out instantly. Mom, you need to leave. I don't want to see your face right now. I need to be away from you. Mary kept crying and screaming that Cole was abandoning her again. However, this time Cole wasn't giving in to her. Next, she started to attack me verbally. The insults she threw at me were vile. She even brought up my dead parents to insult me. Cole had enough and threatened to call the police if she didn't leave. She went back to her house but kept calling repeatedly. Cole and I had some serious talks, and he apologized for being so nabe about his mom. We discussed her awful behavior and decided that it was time for no contact. Even his siblings and Billy were horrified by what happened. They were also contemplating going no contact with her. Mary kept pestering us with calls for months. However, for now she has gotten the hint and is staying away. We might consider establishing a relationship if she gets therapy and tries to be better. But for now, she is staying far away from us. The next day, Kyle showed up again, loudly demanding money for a new video game. When I said no, he sprawled across our couch, turned the TV volume up to maximum, and started making pointed comments about fake, humble rich people. I looked at my husband, hoping for support, but he just walked out of the room, leaving me alone with his smirking nephew. In that moment, standing in my own living room while a teenager openly disrespected me, I felt more alone than I ever had before. 2 years. It's amazing how much can change in 2 years, or maybe how much you can convince yourself that things will get better if you just try hard enough, be patient enough, give enough. I'm going to visit Mom and Dad this weekend, I told James over breakfast one morning. Want to come? He barely glanced up from his phone. Can't. Promised Mom and Dad I'd help them with some stuff around the house. The drive to my parents' house was peaceful. Mom made my favorite lasagna. Dad told his terrible dad jokes. And for a few hours, I felt like myself again. Like the Amber who used to know exactly who she was and what she wanted. But life has a way of shattering peace into a million pieces. When I opened the door to our apartment Sunday evening, the stench hit me first. Stale beer and pizza, and something worse. Empty cans littered every surface. Cigarette butts floated in half-empty Solo cups. Pizza boxes made a greasy tower on my coffee table. And there, sprawled across my living room like they owned it, were Kyle and 5 other teenagers, passed out among the wreckage of what had clearly been one hell of a party. Get up, I shouted, my voice shaking with rage. All of you out now. The teenagers startled awake, scrambling to gather their things. All except Kyle, who stretched lazily and looked at me with that familiar smirk. Why should I leave? I live here now. I felt my blood pressure rising. Excuse me. Had a fight with Mom and Grandma, he said, reaching for a half-empty beer can. Decided this was better than their rules. Uncle James said I could crash here. We rent this apartment. I may have screamed. We may have problems, but this is our apartment. Give me your keys now. Kyle laughed. Actually laughed. Rent this apartment? That's funny. This is Uncle James's apartment. Has been since Great-Grandpa left it to him. The room started spinning. What are you talking about? The apartment. It's his. Always has been. Got it when Great-Grandpa died 5 years ago. Everyone knows that. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. 2 years of rent payments. Every time I'd suggested putting the lease in my name, every time he'd dodged the question, every time he'd quickly hidden his phone when making the rent transfer, it had all been a lie. I must have looked like I was about to collapse because Kyle's whole demeanor changed. The cocky teenager disappeared, replaced by someone who looked almost sympathetic. "Look," he said awkwardly, patting my shoulder, "there's something else you should know." He pulled out his phone, fidgeting with it. "I've been recording some of their conversations. Started doing it when they were talking about me, but, well, they talk about you a lot too." James's laugh came through the speaker first. That laugh I used to love. "Perfect," he was saying. $3,000 a month straight into my pocket. She doesn't even question it. My stomach churned as Kyle played recording after recording, each one worse than the last. Heap talking about family loyalty. Rachel was saying, "She'll cave every time." Got a new product, a bag, out of her last week. "Just make sure you get her pregnant soon," Linda's voice again. "Once there's a baby, her daddy will have to buy you two a house. No way he'll let his grandchild live in an apartment." But the worst was yet to come. Kyle hesitated before playing the next one. "She's such an idiot," James's voice, slightly slurred. "Can't even satisfy me in bed. Thank God for Amanda and Julie, and what's her name from accounting. Just be careful, honey," Linda again. "Don't let Amber catch you. At least not until we've squeezed every penny we can out of her." The phone slipped from my numb fingers. Kyle caught it. "Could you?" My voice cracked. "Could you send those to me?" He nodded quickly, tapping on his phone. I heard the notification sounds on mine as the files came through. Kyle stood up, gathering his things. At the door, he turned back. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "They're all snakes, you know. Always have been. Even Mom." He shrugged. "Guess that's why they hate me so much. I can't pretend like they do." 2 months later, James proposed during a walk in the park. It wasn't elaborate, just us, a simple ring, and a heartfelt question. I said yes immediately. When it came to wedding planning, we had our first real disagreement. James wanted something extravagant, a huge venue, hundreds of guests, all the trimmings. "Babe, we don't need all that," I argued. "Let's do something small and meaningful." He eventually gave in, though not happily. We had a modest ceremony with just immediate family present, but I couldn't help overhearing Linda during the reception, whispering to her sister. I expected something much grander from someone with her background. All this, it's so plain. I pretended not to hear, but their words stung more than I wanted to admit. The ink had barely dried on our marriage certificate when the questions about housing started. We were having Sunday dinner at Tom and Linda's when they brought it up. It was a typical family gathering. Rachel texting on her phone, Kyle playing video games in the corner, and Tom watching sports on TV while we ate. "So, Amber," Linda said, passing the mashed potatoes, "have you talked to your father about buying you two a house? Something in the Cherry Creek area would be perfect. I was just looking at listings there yesterday. There's this beautiful 5-bedroom with a pool." I nearly choked on my water. Actually, we're planning to save up and buy our own place. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel's fork stopped midway to her mouth. Tom muted the TV and turned to stare at me, while Linda's face held that artificial smile I was beginning to recognize all too well. They exchanged loaded glances that made me feel like I'd said something terribly wrong. "But surely your father wouldn't mind." Tom started, wiping his mouth with his napkin. "I mean, it's just natural for parents to help their children get started, especially when they're so capable." I cut him off firmly but politely, sitting up straighter in my chair. James and I want to do this on our own. We're both working, and we can save up. I believe in earning what you have." James reached for my hand under the table, his palms slightly sweaty. "I support Amber on this," he said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Besides, my apartment is perfectly fine for now. I've been renting it for years, and it's in a great location." Linda's eyes lit up suddenly, like she'd just had a brilliant idea. She set down her wine glass with a little too much force. "Well, if you're staying in the apartment, Amber should pay the rent. After all, she makes quite a bit more than you do, James. It's only fair." I watched as my husband nodded in agreement, a little too quickly for my comfort. "That makes sense," he said, not meeting my eyes. "It's $3,000 a month." The amount took me by surprise. Denver wasn't cheap, but that seemed high for our neighborhood. Still, I didn't want to create waves. The tension in the room was already thick enough to cut with a knife. "Sure, that's fair," I said, trying to keep my voice light. So our routine was established. Every month I'd give James $3,000, and he'd handle the rent payment. Sometimes I'd see him making the transfer on his phone, always quick to close the screen if I walked by. It went on like this for a while until one day, a thought occurred to me while I was reviewing our monthly expenses. "Hey," I said one evening while we were having dinner in our kitchen, the sounds of the city drifting in through the open window. "Since I'm paying the rent now, maybe I should take over the lease. We could put it in my name. It would make sense for tax purposes." James's reaction was immediate and strange. He tensed up, nearly dropping his fork onto his half-eaten pasta, his face paling slightly. "No, that wouldn't work," he said quickly, his voice higher than usual. "I've been renting from Mr. Johnson for years. He trusts me. We don't want to mess with a good thing." Something about his reaction bothered me deeply, the way his eyes wouldn't quite meet mine, the slight tremor in his hands as he reached for his water glass. But I pushed the feeling aside, like I'd been doing with so many little things lately. Life in Denver had fallen into a routine. I was settling into my role at the branch office, managing my team, and having weekly video calls with Mom and Dad. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, but there was one issue that kept gnawing at me. It happened for the first time on a Tuesday. I came home from work early with a headache, only to find Linda and Rachel sitting on my couch, watching my TV, and eating the expensive salmon I'd bought for James's birthday dinner. "Oh, Amber," Linda said, not even getting up. "We were just having a little snack." I stood there, key still in hand, staring at them. They had their shoes up on my coffee table, magazines scattered everywhere, and my kitchen looked like a tornado had hit it. This became a regular occurrence. I'd come home to find them there, or worse, come home to evidence they'd been there. Empty food containers, things moved around, my closet clearly rifled through. They had keys, of course they had keys. One evening, I tried talking to James about it. "Honey, don't you think it's a bit strange that your mom and sister just come in whenever they want?" He barely looked up from his phone. "They're family, Amber. You're being dramatic. Just calm down." But I couldn't calm down, not when I found them going through my personal papers one afternoon, giggling over my diary from college that they discovered in a box I hadn't unpacked yet. "We need to talk," I said firmly, my hand shaking slightly. "This isn't okay. You can't just come into our home without asking. You can't go through our things." Linda's face crumpled instantly. Tears sprang to her eyes like someone had turned on a faucet. "How dare you?" she wailed. "After everything we've done to welcome you into our family. I knew you were too good for us, with your fancy background." As if on cue, James walked in. He took in the scene, his mother sobbing, Rachel glaring at me, and me standing there in shock. "What did you do?" he demanded, rushing to his mother's side. "She's trying to keep us away from you," Linda cried into his shoulder. "She says we're not welcome here anymore." "That's not what I started, but James cut me off. "How could you treat them like this? They're my family." After they left, James turned on me, his face hard in a way I'd never seen before. "You need to fix this," he said. "Buy them something nice, really nice, and apologize." The next day, I went shopping after work. I bought Linda a designer handbag she'd been hinting about and Rachel a pair of expensive boots. My hands felt dirty as I wrapped them. When I delivered the gifts to their house, they accepted them with smug smiles. "We knew you'd come around," Linda said, not even looking at me as she examined the handbag. "These will do," Rachel added, trying on the boots. That night, James finally spoke to me again. "See, was that so hard?" he asked, kissing my cheek. But something had changed, something I couldn't quite put my finger on yet. After the boundary incident, things got worse in ways I hadn't imagined possible. Linda and Rachel turned gift demanding into an art form. Every minor holiday became an occasion for expectations. "Amber, you know it's National Sister Thursday next week," Rachel would text. "I saw this beautiful Gucci bag." "It's the anniversary of when I first held James as a baby," Linda would announce. "I think a spa weekend would be appropriate to mark the occasion." The requests were endless. Mother's Day, birthday, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day. Even Groundhog Day became an excuse. When I hesitated about buying Linda a $500 scarf for Arbor Day, she burst into tears during family dinner. "I guess some people just don't understand family loyalty," she sniffled while Rachel patted her back. "Even after we've welcomed her so warmly." "Amber," James said later that night, "why do you have to be so difficult? They're your family now, too." "But James, don't you think this is getting out of hand? Last week your mom wanted a designer watch because it was National Ice Cream Day." He just shrugged. "If you can afford it, why not help family?" As if the situation wasn't stressful enough, Kyle, Rachel's 15-year-old son, started showing up at our apartment more frequently. At first, I tried to be understanding. All teenagers go through difficult phases, right? But Kyle took teenage attitude to new heights. One evening, I spent hours making my grandmother's special lasagna recipe. Kyle took one bite and pushed the plate away. "This is garbage," he declared. "Mom says you probably can't cook because you grew up with servants doing everything for you." I gripped my fork tighter. "Kyle, that's not appropriate." "Whatever," he cut me off. "I need $60 for the movies with my friends." When I refused, he kicked the kitchen chair. "You're loaded. Stop being such a miser. Mom says you're just playing poor to feel superior." That night, I tried talking to James about Kyle's behavior. We were getting ready for bed, and I was hoping he'd finally see reason. "Honey, Kyle was really disrespectful today. Could you maybe talk to him?" James didn't even look up from his phone. "You need to handle it yourself. Think of it as practice. We'll have our own kids someday. You need to learn how to deal with these situations." My name is Amber Richardson, and I grew up seeing my parents start from scratch and grow their sports nutrition business. Being born into an affluent family may seem to some like a life of luxury and comfort, but that couldn't be further from the reality. From the beginning, my parents, particularly my father, made sure I knew the importance of working hard. When Dad took me to the office for the first time, I can still clearly recall it. At the age of 7, I was attempting to seem as professional as a second grader could while sporting my favorite blue outfit with small flowers. He seated me at a little desk close to his office and said, Amber. All of this might be yours one day, but you'll have to earn it like I did." My entire youth was influenced by those words. I was studying customer service and inventory management, while other youngsters enjoyed their summers by the pool. Although I adored every second of being a kid, Mom occasionally feared that I was losing out. Richardson Nutrition became a second home for me. Business coursework and internships at Dad's company made college go by in a flash. From the warehouse up, I worked in every area. I didn't get any preferential treatment. That was our agreement. As I learned the ropes from the ground up, the staff members who had known me since I was a youngster looked on with approbation. I jumped right into my job at the firm after graduating. Meetings, reports, and strategy sessions filled my days. Having a date, that was an alien idea. Sarah, my flatmate from college, used to make fun of me for being wedded to my profession. At the company's annual holiday party, everything changed. I had stayed behind to do some quarterly reports, so I was running late as usual. The celebration was in full flow when I eventually made it to the location. James Cooper from our Denver branch was there when I saw him. Tall, with easy smiles that erased the fatigue from my 14-hour shift, and kind brown eyes. Saying, "You must be Amber," he held out his hand. "I've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I said with a giggle as I shook his hand. "The best, though they didn't mention you were beautiful." We spent hours discussing our dreams, careers, and families that evening. He appeared to have a unique understanding of me. My heart skipped a beat when he asked for my number at the end of the evening. We began contacting each other nonstop when James got back to Denver. Every night concluded with lengthy discussions about our days, and every morning started with his "Good morning, beautiful" text. I thought I had known him for ages. After an especially lengthy video conversation one evening, I leaped. "How about moving to the main office? It would be fantastic for your career if we were together." He hesitated for a moment. "I can't, Amber. My sister, my nephew, and my parents are all in Denver. We are so near. I was unable to abandon them." He went on, "But why don't you come here?" That made my heart sink a little. Someone with your level of experience would be helpful to the Denver branch. After pondering that idea for a day, I went to Dad's workplace. "I need your opinion, Daddy. Would you be in favor of my moving to the Denver branch?" As I described James, I kept a close eye on his expression. Dad merely grinned, which surprised me. "I was wondering when you would inquire. James is well liked by his coworkers, and the Denver office needs capable management. I'll make it happen if this is what you desire." 2 weeks later, I found myself standing among packing boxes at James's Denver flat. "Welcome home," he replied, embracing me completely. I had the impression that I was in the right place. I was surprised by how quickly we met his family for the first time. His sister Rachel, her adolescent son Kyle, and his parents, Tom and Linda, shared a small 2-story home. When we arrived at their place, I felt anxious. Linda said, "Your family must have a mansion," as soon as I entered. "This must seem so simple to you." My cheeks began to flush. "Oh no, absolutely not. Our lives have always been rather typical. Just a typical residence, no private planes or mansions. But surely with your family's wealth," Tom got going. "I've worked for everything since I was a kid," I said. "Dad thought you had to earn your way. To be honest, I feel more at ease with basic things." I caught the disappointed looks they exchanged, but tried to ignore them. Rachel, James's sister, looked me up and down, eyeing my simple sweater and jeans. "If I had your money, I wouldn't be caught dead in anything but designer labels," she said with a smirk. I just shrugged, not knowing how to respond. James squeezed my hand under the table, but said nothing to defend me. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone in the trash department. Alone with the truth about my marriage, about my husband, about the past 2 years of my life. I didn't bother cleaning up the mess in the apartment. I let it be a perfect metaphor for my marriage, a beautiful facade hiding absolute garbage underneath. Instead, I got in my car and drove straight to Linda and Tom's house, where I knew they'd all be having their Sunday family dinner. They were all there, exactly as I'd pictured them. James, Linda, Tom, and Rachel gathered around the dining table like some Norman Rockwell painting of family unity. The scene made me sick. Amber's fake smile appeared instantly. "We weren't expecting you. How was your parents' house?" I ignored her completely, fixing my eyes on James. "Show me the rental agreement for our apartment." The room went silent. James's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "What rental agreement?" he asked. "The lease." "Show it to me," I demanded. He recovered quickly, plastering on that charming smile I'd once loved. "Oh, honey, you know Mr. Johnson doesn't do formal contracts. We've known each other for years." "Mr. Johnson doesn't exist. I cut him off." "The apartment belongs to you. Always has." Linda jumped in quickly, her voice high and nervous. "Amber, dear, would you like some pot roast? I tried that recipe you mentioned." "Shut up, Linda." My voice was ice cold. They all stared at me in shock. I'd never spoken to any of them like that before. "James, what have you been doing with my $3,000 every month for the past 2 years?" He chuckled, but I could see sweat breaking out on his forehead. "Come on, Amber, it's not a big deal. So I own the apartment. What difference does it make? We're married." "What difference?" I pulled out my phone. "Let's see what difference it makes." The color drained from their faces as James's voice filled the room. "It's perfect. $3,000 a month straight into my pocket. She doesn't even question it." I played recording after recording, their own voices condemning them. The plotting, the manipulation, the mockery. James's boasts about his mistresses. Linda and Rachel's schemes for extracting gifts. Their plans for getting me pregnant to secure more money from my father. When I finally stopped the playback, you could have heard a pin drop. James was ghost white. Rachel looked like she might throw up. Linda's carefully maintained makeup couldn't hide her terror. James was informed that I was divorcing him. The paperwork should arrive this week. These recordings are made public if you attempt to get in touch with me for anything other than the divorce process. The corporate world would undoubtedly be interested in learning how you defrauded your wife of $72,000. Their complaints were ignored, so I turned and left. I packed my belongings carefully and effectively after driving back to the flat, his place. I picked up my car and headed to my folks' place around nightfall. When I got there, Mom and Dad were still up. They could tell something was seriously wrong just by looking at my face. I showed them the tapes and told them everything. With every new discovery, Dad's expression darkened. He responded, "I'll handle this," when I was done. And he did. The following day, James lost his job, and Dad made sure his business reputation was ruined. The divorce process moved quickly. James first resisted it, but the recordings made all the difference. The issue of financial wrongdoing piqued the judge's curiosity. Only his flat and his damaged reputation were left behind when James left. After 3 months, I returned to headquarters, threw myself into my work, and began to gradually restore my life. At that point, Kyle texted me. We had coffee together. He appeared more composed and less angry. He informed me, "I got a job at the car wash. After they discovered that I was the one who handed you the tapes, they left Mom's house. The best choice I've ever made." I said I could help you, get you a position at the company. He grinned a little and shook his head. Thank you, but I have to do this alone. You know, a fresh start. In addition, I'm putting money down for community college. I got it exactly. Leaving everything behind and starting again to create something new, something real, is sometimes the only viable course of action. I stared at myself in the mirror that evening when I was standing in my new flat, which was actually a rental with a legitimate lease in my name. The lady who fell for James's charm 2 years ago was not the same one staring back at me. She was smarter, stronger, and at last truly free. One by one, I erased their numbers from my phone. The diamond on my ring finger, which is now my grandmother's ring rather than the one James gave me, was caught in the dying light of the day and dispersed into 1,000 points of light. The city was bursting with nighttime vitality outside my window, brimming with opportunities and fresh starts. I was prepared for mine.
My name is Valerie, and I'm 29 years old. I've been wanting to talk about this since it happened, but thanks to legal issues, I couldn't really say anything until I was cleared to talk about it. Now that I can, I want this to be my little revenge on my mother-in-law. I don't want her to ever come back or show her face anywhere around where we are. This will be a warning against her trying. Let me start by saying that Adrian and I only crossed paths because of our mothers. Adrian's mother, Felicia, and my mother, Veronica, were pretty good friends. The two of them had met up for coffee after years one day, and they both realized that they had single children. They decided to set their children up, and that's how Adrian and I found ourselves sitting at the same coffee shop a week later. Although it was a little awkward that our mothers set us up, we quickly warmed up to each other. We found out that we had a lot in common, like our mutual love for action movies and pizza. We found ourselves so immersed in conversation that we didn't even realize how much time had passed. Before we knew it, the sun began setting on us. We decided to say goodbye then, but promised to meet each other again soon. We met again the next week for a newly released action movie and pizza. We continued to go on dates almost every week for the next 2 months. I found myself falling deeply in love with Adrian. Adrian also fell in love with me, and I could tell because every time he saw me, his entire face would light up. He would pay close attention to everything I said, and if ever I mentioned something I wanted, if it was affordable, he would show up on the next date with the thing. I loved his sense of humor and how attentive he was. I loved how much he cared for me and how much effort he put in for me, which is why I was the one to make the first move and ask him to be my boyfriend. He obviously enthusiastically said yes. We officially introduced each other as a couple to our parents. Both of our mothers were overjoyed and proud that they were the reason we were together in the first place. However, as the months passed, I began to notice Adrian's mother, Felicia's behavior towards me change. Felicia would be cold and distant from me. Sometimes she would make snide remarks about me under her breath. I would ask her why she was behaving that way or why she said something rude, and Felicia always told me that it was nothing, or she would try to convince me that I was making it all up in my head and hearing things. It bothered me a lot, and finally one day I spoke to Adrian about it. Adrian got angry and promised me that he would make sure his mother treated me properly. I was grateful for that. I knew how much Adrian loved his mother, but the fact that he would stand up for me against his mother made me incredibly happy. I didn't know what Adrian had said to his mother because, after that, Felicia treated me like she always had before she changed. I was grateful and enjoyed my stress-free time. Adrian and I dated for 2 years before deciding to get married. Our wedding was a small and intimate ceremony. Only our closest friends and family were present. Shortly after we got married, tragedy struck Adrian's mother, Felicia. Her house had caught fire and had burned to the ground. It happened due to faulty electrical wiring. Thankfully, Felicia was all right and unharmed. She had been out when the house caught fire. Since she had no place to stay, we opened our house to her. She lived there with us for the next year. In that year, Adrian and I experienced great success in our careers. Since we were in a place to start a family, we decided to start trying. Within 2 months, I had gotten pregnant. Adrian and I were overjoyed. We had always talked about being parents, and the fact that our dream was finally coming true made us feel really good. But our joy slowly started fading when Felicia gradually became more controlling. I had been suffering from a lot of morning sickness and cramping. My legs got swollen, and it became very hard for me to do all the things around the house because all of my energy was spent at work. Felicia could not stand that. She would yell at me to do her work. One day, I had come home earlier from work because I was in too much pain. I lay down on the bed and took a short nap, but I was rudely awoken a little while later by Felicia. Felicia began yelling at me for not having done her laundry. I was still pretty disoriented from being awoken from my sleep, so I asked Felicia what she was talking about. "Valerie, why didn't you do the laundry today? Now I have nothing to wear." "Wait, what? Why didn't you do your own laundry? It's not my responsibility." "It's your responsibility as the host to take care of that." "I'm literally in so much pain right now. Are you trying to start a fight about this?" "Oh, come on. You're just making a big deal out of it. Pregnancy isn't that bad, and you're exaggerating for attention. You have no idea what I'm going through. It's not easy for me to manage work and the house chores when I'm feeling so unwell. That's not my problem. I was pregnant once also, and I never experienced all this. Get out, get out, get out, get out of the room, get out of the house, get out of my life. How dare you talk to me like I'm faking everything? Who are you? Can you feel what I'm feeling? Get out." Felicia looked scared and quickly left the room. I couldn't believe her audacity. How dare she try to tell me my pain wasn't real? What would I get from faking my pains? At the same time I was yelling at Felicia, Adrian had gotten home from work and he heard me. He worriedly ran up the stairs to check on me. He got there just in time to see his mother hurry and leave the room in fear. He walked into our room carefully and saw me crying hysterically on the bed. He quickly sat down next to me and hugged me. He let me cry for a little while before asking me why I was crying. I recounted everything that had happened with Felicia and how she had been constantly yelling at me whenever I didn't do the house chores. Adrian got really angry and got up to talk to his mother, but I stopped him. He saw my pleading face and calmed down. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "I know how upset you'd get. I didn't want you to end up evicting your mother, causing more tension between you two. I felt sorry for her, so I kept it to myself." "Babe, I understand why you did that, but I should have known what was going on. I want you to share everything with me, especially when it's affecting you like this." "I'm sorry, darling. I should have told you, but I didn't want to cause more problems." "You never have to bear these things alone. We're a team, remember? I promise you, I'll talk to my mother calmly about her behavior, and I want you to be there with me for that conversation." Together, we walked into Felicia's room. I was nervous about what Adrian was going to do. I know that he gets very protective of me, and his temper isn't the best. While I'm hurt, I hoped he wouldn't do something he regretted. Felicia looked surprised and asked why we were in her room. Why are you both in my room? What's going on? Enough with the act. Valerie told me everything. You've been constantly yelling at her about the household chores. Well, she should be doing them. After all, I'm just a guest here, right? You could have either done them yourself, or you could have waited for me to do them. You didn't need to bother Valerie like that. It's a woman's job to handle household chores. You would never catch me asking you for help with these kinds of tasks. I don't care about your beliefs. It's my house, my rules. I'm your mother. You can't tell me what to do. This is my home, and if you can't respect that, then maybe it's time you find another place to live. You can't do that. I have nowhere else to go. The only reason I haven't evicted you already is because Valerie asked me not to. But if you cross the line again, I won't hesitate. I promise I won't do it again. Just please don't kick me out. You need to change, Mom. Treat Valerie with respect, like the family she is to us. All right. And so, the rest of my pregnancy went off relatively smoothly. My symptoms were alleviated as I got further along with my pregnancy. Finally, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Adrian and I were overjoyed to welcome our precious daughter into our family. We named her Ava. I stayed in the hospital for 2 more days after I gave birth. On the 3rd day, Adrian picked me and our daughter up from the hospital before he left for work and dropped us home. Felicia warmly greeted the 3 of us. Oh, look at my precious granddaughter. You've done such a wonderful job, Valerie. She's the most beautiful bundle of joy. Thank you, Felicia. It means a lot coming from you. Valerie needs some rest now, Mom. She's just given birth, and Ava kept her up through the night. Don't worry, I'll take care of the baby. You go and get some rest, Valerie. I don't want to be away from Ava so soon. Trust me, you'll need this rest soon enough. Mom will take good care of her. You rest, dear. I'll be here to look after Ava. All right, but just for a couple of hours. Then I'll take over. That sounds fair. You rest now, and I'll do the same later. Thank you, Mom. With that, Adrian left to go to work while I went to sleep, and Felicia looked after Ava. I woke up 2 hours later to Ava crying loudly. I got worried and went to check on what was going on. The sound of crying was coming from Felicia's room. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if Felicia was purposely ignoring my daughter, or if she was somehow sleeping through the loud noise.
I knocked on Felicia's door but got no response. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. Panic started to settle in. I began banging on the door. After 2 minutes of banging on the door and yelling for Felicia to open it, she finally opened the door just enough for me to see a portion of her face. Felicia, what are you doing? Let me see Ava. I'm just trying to teach you a lesson. You can't rely on Adrian for everything. You need to take responsibility for your duties around the house. This is not the way to teach a lesson. Give me my child right now. Complete your chores, and then you can have Ava back. It's time you learn to handle your responsibilities. What is wrong with you? Remember, the longer you take to complete the chores, the longer your child goes hungry. Fear had replaced the anger in me. I was ready to do anything that Felicia asked me, as long as Ava was safe. I didn't know why she was being this cruel to me right after I had given birth. But I didn't have the luxury of arguing about it. I needed my baby fed and safe. I asked Felicia what needed to be done. Felicia told me that there was a pile of dishes to be done, and that the house needed to be vacuumed because it had gotten dusty. The common bathroom also had to be scrubbed clean. Felicia said I had to finish everything before Adrian came back, and that I could not tell Adrian anything about it. Otherwise, she would make things worse for me. I nodded through sobs and left to complete the chores. I sobbed because I was still in pain, but I knew that I had no choice. I spent the next couple of hours toiling away to make the house clean for Felicia. I had to take a few painkillers to stop me from fainting from pain and exhaustion. I also had to be careful not to put any strain on my stitches and tear them. All in all, I was having a tough time, and I kept crying as I did the chores. I wanted to tell Adrian because this was beyond cruel, but I was scared about what Felicia might do to Ava. I was glad that Felicia had managed to get Ava to stop crying, but I was still scared about what the future had in store for us. I just wished that there was some way out of this. The universe had heard my wish, and did more than I had hoped for. You see, that day Adrian arrived 2 hours earlier from work to surprise Ava and me. However, when he walked into the house, he couldn't find me anywhere. He saw the light in the common bathroom switched on and walked in to see me on my hands and knees, scrubbing the floor while sobbing. Adrian rushed over to me and asked why I was overexerting myself like this. At the sight of him, I started sobbing harder. Adrian panicked and pulled me into his arms. He gently stroked my hair as he waited for me to calm down. When I did, I told him about what Felicia had done. Adrian was seething, and unlike last time, I did not stop him. Adrian banged on Felicia's door and asked her to open up. Felicia opened the door and looked at him in surprise. "Adrian, how come you came home early? Did you forget something?" "I didn't forget anything. I came home early because I wanted to surprise Ava and see my family, but instead, I found you trying to teach my wife a lesson in the worst possible way." "Oh, come on. I was just trying to help her be a better wife and mother. She needs to learn to handle her responsibilities." "Help? That was no help. It was cruel and heartless. How could you treat her like that? She needs to learn. It's for her own good." "For her own good? Look at our child. You had no right to involve her in your twisted lessons. She's just a baby. I know what's best for everyone, including you. Valerie needs to change. No, you need to change. I won't let you hurt my family anymore. We're done. I want you out of our lives. Adrian, you can't be serious. I thought you cared about me." "I did care about you once, but not anymore. You've crossed a line and I won't tolerate it. I will make you pay." "Adrian, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. It's too late for apologies. You need to face the consequences of your actions." He silently walked out of her room and gave Ava to me. I cried tears of joy. I just knew that you had to be some type of monster to torment an innocent child like that. Anger swirled within me, and I wanted to make Felicia pay. I asked Adrian what he had done to Felicia. "I'm going to file a lawsuit against her. She endangered my child and harassed her mother. I will make sure she pays dearly for it." "But Adrian, fighting a lawsuit, isn't it too much?" "You and Ava are my world. Nothing is too much if anyone hurts either of you. She had no right to treat you like that. Thanks for standing up for us. I can't believe she would go to such an extent to get her way. I don't know what I would have done without you here. It was terrifying. Promise from now on, you and Ava will be safe. I won't allow anyone to harm you ever again." True to his word, Adrian had filed the lawsuit. A couple of days later, Felicia was served of the court summons. Felicia was shocked. She asked Adrian what the summons was for. "You endangered my child and harassed my wife after she gave birth. I had to file this lawsuit to hold you accountable for your actions, Adrian. Please." "I didn't mean to cause harm. I was just trying to help." "Your idea of help is twisted. You crossed a line and now you have to face the consequences for a family. You can't do this to me. Family doesn't give people the right to hurt others. You hurt Valerie and traumatized Ava. I won't stand for it. Please, I'll change. I promise. I won't interfere anymore." "It's too late for promises. You have no evidence against me. How will you prove it?" "I installed baby cameras everywhere the night before Valerie got home from the hospital. I've got more than enough evidence of you hurting my family, Adrian. I beg you, don't do this. I'll do anything to make it right. You had your chance to be better. Now you must face the truth. You broke my trust and I won't let you hurt my family any longer." In the months that followed, things moved quickly in court. Felicia got charged with a misdemeanor and got a 6-month jail sentence plus an $800 fine. When the judge announced the sentence, Felicia broke down and started wailing in the courtroom. Adrian didn't seem to care about her tears, and instead looked satisfied that she got what she deserved. As I watched Felicia get escorted out of the courtroom with handcuffs, I couldn't help but feel relieved. I knew that for at least the next 6 months, my family and I would be free of Felicia's toxic behavior. Meanwhile, Adrian and I concentrated on raising our newborn daughter Ava and didn't let Felicia's actions define us. We found strength in each other and the support of our friends and loved ones. While Felicia was in jail, she had time to think about what she had done. At the same time, Adrian and I worked on healing from the hurt she caused. I couldn't fully forgive her, but I knew it was important to move forward for our own sake and our families. Felicia finished her jail time and sought counseling to make amends for her actions. I wanted to believe she could change, but I remained cautious and never let her come close to us again. One time she tried, I threatened to get a restraining order. I couldn't endanger my daughter again. Our lives gradually got back to normal. The pain Felicia caused was still there, but we focused on building a better future for our family and cherishing the happiness Ava brought into our lives.